Alrighty, people. We are now live to talk about the New York Knicks game last night. We're about to go live on the Instagram as well, on the Fireside Knicks Instagram. We are live on my Twitter and, of course, the Fireside Knicks YouTube. So, welcome to everybody who has joined and is willing to watch this. So let's address the elephant in the room. Of course, the New York Knicks won last night, but it was against a decapitated Warriors team. And yes, I said decapitated because that team basically had G Leaguers out there, and it was quite embarrassing that the Knicks ended up finding themselves down by 21 at the early part of that game. I was not very pleased by that whatsoever, and I imagine a lot of you guys were also not very happy about that, and you guys really should not be happy about that. Um, of course, a win is a win. I will, gladly take an ugly win over anything else, over a loss. I would much rather them win ugly than not win at all. But at the same time, these slow starts that the Knicks keep getting on just continue to bite them. I mean, it is getting kind of ridiculous now how every single game now, and I do apologize if you hear rain in the background. It is raining where I am at, so I hope that is not too loud. But anyways, as I was saying, these slow starts are just getting out of control now. They have a negative 18 net rating in the first quarter over the past few games, and that ranks 28th in the NBA. That is just excuse me, that is just a very bad mark. And for what it's worth as well, Mike Brown yesterday in the press conference, I think, really spoke a lot about just how fed up he is with these slow starts. Yes, they won the game, and I'm sure he's pleased at the end of the day that they ended up winning the game. But he was very adamant about how these slow starts are just unacceptable. He didn't even award a defensive player of the game. It's the first time all season that he did not do that after a win. So with that being said, I mean, I respect Mike Brown for doing that, but at the same time, I wonder if changes are needed for things to get better for this team. I know a lot. The main discussion has been, should they tweak the starting five? Should they make a change there? And even I have been a proponent of suggesting such a thing. But at this point, I don't even know if the starting five is really what needs to be changed at this point. I don't know if that needs to be changed. At this point, I think it's just an effort thing. I think it's an effort issue. I think the guys just need to play stronger and have more effort. And we saw that after the first quarter yesterday, or really after that, lull in the second quarter. They did play with effort. They played really hard, and they ended up coming back down 21 and winning the game. That's awesome. That's fantastic. But at the same time, the fact that they even went down 21 to a Warriors team that had basically Brandon Pajemski and a bunch of G Leaguers out there, that's not good. And we're in March now, guys. The playoffs are right around the corner. So you really cannot be playing like that against this type of against teams like this. And that you can't do that. You cannot play against teams like this and just come out like that. You have to play better than that. If you want to be a title contender, you have to look better than that. And I think Mike Brown realizes that. And I think that's why he, was so upset yesterday after the game. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm very happy they ended up winning the game. I'm happy that they've won 3 in a row, but I'd be lying if I said these past 3 wins have been aesthetically pleasing. I mean, they went down 18 to the Jazz. They blew a 17-point lead to the Pacers. And then yesterday going down 21 to a Golden State team with basically nobody of relevance on the floor. So those are not good. That's not ideal. So with that being said, I want to see better play, but I know it'll come. I'm confident that they will play better. I am very confident that they'll play better. We've seen them play better. We have seen them do that. We saw great wins against the Spurs, against the Celtics, excuse me, and they've had a bunch of good wins, but they've also had some weird wins as well, ugly ones like the Pacers wins. Both their wins against Indiana have been very ugly. Yesterday against Golden State, very ugly. Jazz game the other night, very ugly. Obviously, in a long season, you're gonna have games like that where there's gonna be some ugly performances. It happens. I understand that. I get not all 82 games are going to be perfect for any team, but the Knicks have kind of been one of those teams where consistency has been an issue really all season. I talk about it all the time, so I'm not going to repeat myself again on here, but we all know at this point that consistency has been an issue for this team, and we want to see them be more consistent. Granted, I am very pleased that they are still able to find a way to win these games despite playing very ugly. I'm not going to act like winning games is a bad thing. No, you win a game, that's awesome. I mean, you're still in a very good spot. You're very much in a great spot to really get a good seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs, and hopefully you can make a push for the second seed because ultimately that's what we need right now. Right now they're sitting third, but I want them to be able to get that second seed so they can get home court advantage through at least the first two rounds of the postseason. I would like that, but anyways, I just want to see more consistent play. And I think it's fair for me to say that at this point because, yes, they've won three in a row, but it's been very ugly in the process. And I think still we see at times that when they play at their best, we know how unstoppable they can be. When they beat the Spurs by 25, that was the most perfect game they've played. When they beat Denver by 40, they started that game out really slow, but they ended up winning the game by 40. So I can't really complain about that one. But what I can complain about is exactly what I just alluded to, those slow starts. And Mike Brown very much emphasized that yesterday in his press conference, saying, it's unacceptable how they continue to fall down so much at the start of games and how they continue to show a lack of effort, really. I mean, he didn't outright say that they're not playing with effort, but he did mention physicality and focus. And in short, that's effort. And you can just see, with the way they play, that sometimes they do lack effort. And in that first quarter yesterday, the defense was nowhere to be found. I mean, they were leaving guys wide open. I think Golden State knocked down like their first 8 shots. And of course, they went down by 21. That one possession where, and I posted this on my Twitter before, where Gary Payton was left wide open in the second quarter. I mean, it wasn't even just that one possession. He was left open many times, but there was that one specific possession where Podziemski drove to his right and then kicked it back out to Payton, who was wide open for three, and nobody even bothered to try to contest him. And then at that point, they went down by 19, and then eventually it became 21. But then they came back. I credit them for coming back and fighting hard through that, but they should have never been in that position to begin with. And it's against the Warriors team that had basically nobody out there. It's unacceptable. It is. And what's acceptable is that they are able to win the games. Of course, that's acceptable, but it's not acceptable that they ended up going down by as many points as they did and having to fight tooth and nail against a team that really they should have blown out by 30. I mean, they entered the game as 14-point favorites, guys. Like, they should have blown these guys out by 20 or 30 points. And I understand that these guys are NBA players. Things are going to happen. And maybe ultimately it doesn't matter that much because they ended up winning the game anyway. So it is what it is at that front. But the fact of the matter is that slow starts continue to haunt them really badly, and it needs to stop. They need to start games better. They need to start games with the same energy that they are finishing these games. Because I like the way they're finishing games. I do like that. I like that they're finishing the game strong and they're making things happen and finding ways to win despite playing very ugly at the start. But I want to see them play that hard at the start. I don't want to see them just not try at the start because it makes me wonder really, you know, are they okay with starting games off slow, which is not acceptable. You should not be okay with that. And honestly, a lot of you guys here should not be happy with the way these last three games have gone. Maybe, we can be happy about the wins, and that's fine. I'm very happy about the wins, but I think the process has been very ugly. It has. And Mike Brown himself, as I just mentioned, is also not happy with the way the process has gone. That's why he was very upset in his press conference yesterday and why he kept mentioning the defense, why he kept mentioning the effort rather than lamenting on the fact that they won the game. And you know what? That's what a coach should be doing. Now, granted, maybe Mike Brown should have done that, sooner, and maybe Mike Brown is a little hesitant to change things up, which I get. Those are valid criticisms of Mike Brown. I do think that maybe part of the issue is he's not willing to change the starting lineup, but he did say yesterday that he's not ruling anything out. So I don't really know what's forthcoming. I don't know if they're going to make a lineup change. I don't know if a lineup change is going to change much because we saw Landry Shamet start against Utah and they went down 18. So maybe it wasn't. Maybe the starting five wasn't the problem in terms of Josh Hart starting. I mean, here, maybe that wasn't the issue. Maybe there is a separate issue that is causing that, causing the slow starts. Maybe it's a mindset thing. Maybe it's an effort thing. Maybe it's a fit thing. I don't know anymore. I really don't know. And I don't want to just, keep saying I don't know, because honestly, I don't have the answers to everything. I don't. But at the end of the day, wins are wins. I'm okay with them winning games, even if they're ugly. I am not upset about uh any win. Any win. It would be foolish of me to be mad about any win. But I can be a little concerned about the way they won the game and how the process worked. I think that's valid. I think it's one of those things where we know they can play better for all 48 minutes instead of just play like an elite team for 36 minutes, which, again, playing like an elite team for 36 minutes is still more than half the game. But when you're digging yourself in big holes, you're not going to get away with that against good teams. Like if you face the Detroit Pistons in the playoffs, for example, they're not going to let you get away with falling down by nearly 20 points and then having to come back. Last year against Boston, they came back down 20 twice. They got lucky there, but we also know that that's not guaranteed to happen every single game. They're not going to be able to just, expect to be down by double figures and then come back against a playoff team. Against a team like the Warriors with what team they fielded last night, yeah, I would be sitting here and I could say that I'm not very surprised that they ended up coming back to win the game just because the talent level and the talent disparity between the two teams was very significant. So I'm not exactly fully surprised that they came back and won the game, and I'm happy that they ended up doing that. But what I was stunned about was that they even found themselves down 20 to begin with. I mean, again, we've seen them. This little stretch right here, these 3 games, is not the only time we've seen them do this year. Against Dallas, for example, on national TV, on NBC back in January, the game I guess that kind of shifted the tide, if you want to look at it that way. That Mavericks team had nobody as well aside from Cooper Flagg. It was Cooper Flagg and then Max Christie was the team's next best player, and they lost that game by 30. Sacramento Kings earlier that month, same situation. The Kings had 10 wins at the time, and they ended up losing that game by 20 plus. So, when you look at it that way, we know the team's elite, we know the team is very good, but I think at times they play down to their competition, and they really should not be doing that, especially in March. I understand if it's early in the season, you kind of have your little lulls and you want to just get through the season healthy. I get that. We're in March now. This is the time where you need to really figure out who exactly you are and what kind of roles everyone is playing because you're gearing up for the playoffs now. You're gearing up to not just make the playoffs, but you're gearing up to make a run to the finals. A lot has to go your way to make the finals, and the East is looking very competitive this year. So there's not going to exactly be like an easy out for the Knicks this year in the playoffs. Hell, I would even say some teams are looking at the Knicks right now going, I want to face them in the first round if they're going to continue to play with their food like that. So, right now they're getting away with, falling behind a lot, but you're not going to always get, other teams are going to catch them slipping. And that's something I really don't want to happen. I just want them to be more consistent. I don't think it's a lot for me to ask. And I kind of want to move on to another point of emphasis real quick. About Mikal Bridges real quick. And I really don't want to just continue to talk about how much he's struggling, this, that, and the third, because we've talked about Mikal a lot on here. And, some people it's warranted. Some people disagree. Some people think that, he deserves some grace, which I understand. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But the fact of the matter is Mikal Bridges continues to just be a complete disappointment. And I really don't understand at this point what happened because he was, very consistent at the start of the year. And then he kind of went back to that inconsistent player he was, but he was still important for a decent game here and there. And he still was an above average defender. Now, though, I mean, he's losing his spot in the rotation. I mean, yesterday, he played 21 minutes yesterday. That's the fewest amount of minutes he has played since December. And in December against Utah, he played 19 minutes, but that game was a blowout win at the Garden. So he only played 19 minutes because, well, he didn't need to play many minutes because they were up by so much. Yesterday, though, they would have needed Bridges to play a lot of minutes because it was a close game, and Jordan Clarkson and Landry Shamet both played more minutes than him. Landry Shamet played 27 minutes and Jordan Clarkson played 22 minutes, and both those guys provided a bigger impact than Bridges did. And again, it's not to say that those two guys are better basketball players than Mikal Bridges. I don't think that's true. I think Mikal Bridges is still, better than those two guys objectively, but the fact of the matter is right now he's just not playing the way we need him to play. And, maybe he turns it around in the postseason and that's perfectly fine. And I do want to pull up some stats real quick of just exactly how Bridges has been doing. I didn't mean to put it like that on the screen. I will fix that right now. Just so, my screen is not taking up the, there we go. Here we go. I keep messing up the share screen. So if anybody can see exactly what I'm showing, then that's great. But basically here. I think I fixed it now. There we go. Okay, I apologize for that. I was kind of messing around with the settings on here, but I posted this earlier on the Instagram, and this is what Mikal Bridges has done in the last 5 games, and this is not the type of production we expected out of him. Again, 5 game stretch is not a lot of games; it's rather small, but at the same time, we expect more than 6 points in 5 games. We expect more than a 28% field goal percentage and an 18% 3 point percentage from a guy who is supposed to be an elite 3 point shooter, a guy who's supposed to be a fantastic scorer. We expect more out of that, And if you guys are on the Instagram watching this and you can't see the graphic, I do apologize for that. I don't fully understand how it'll work on here because I'm streaming it through the same system as I am through Twitter and YouTube. But if you want to see what I'm talking about, I posted the graphic of Bridges' stat line in his last 5 games on the Fireside Knicks Instagram. So you can go take a look at that if you want. But basically, in short, we all know he's been struggling late. And as I put on the graphic as well, he's only scored 30 total points in the last 132 minutes that he has played. And he's only taken 3 free throws. 3 free throws. That is such a small number. 3 free throws right there. I mean, that's just okay. So you guys can see the graphic. Okay, great. I'm glad you guys can see it. Those watching on Instagram. But anyways, as I was saying, like 3 free throws in that small of a stretch, that can't happen, guys. Like this is a guy who's 6'6" and a 7-foot wingspan. I understand, he's more of a shooter than anything else, but be aggressive once in a while. The 3-pointer is not falling. Do something different to try to impact the game. And, quite frankly, he's not earning his playing time. He is losing his spot in the rotation almost at this point, and it's something that we cannot just live with at this point. You can deal with like bench guys struggling because then you can just simply not play them, right? With Mikal Bridges, though, I mean, we obviously gave up 5 first-round picks to get him, which, I know everyone is sick of hearing that, so I'm not going to, harp on that right now. We also handed him a $150 million contract, another thing fans are sick of hearing about, so I'm not going to harp on that either. This is a guy that we expected, though, to be starting games, playing every game, and making a positive impact most of the time, right? And quite frankly, he's been the biggest problem for this team this year. And that's something we really cannot have right now. We cannot have a guy who we expected to play a massive role be a massive problem. We just can't have that anymore. I mean, I don't know what the solution is at this point because I thought by now Bridges would snap out of it. I thought maybe, just maybe, he would, figure things out. He would kind of get going. He hasn't. He hasn't got going. And I don't really know what the solution is to that. I don't know if he needs to do something different. I don't know if a role needs to be changed. I don't know if he needs to come off the bench or something. I don't know anymore. And I really wish I had the answer for it. I wish I knew what exactly needed to be different. I just don't know anymore. I don't know. I don't understand how Bridges is still struggling this badly. I don't understand it because, the idea of having him out there is that he'd be like a perfect fit because, he's a great shooter. He's a solid defender. He's good. He's got length. He's versatile. It just hasn't been working. And it's to a point now where you got to start thinking about next season. You got to start thinking about, do they keep him around next year or do they move on from him? And I know we're not even in the playoffs yet. So maybe the idea completely changes. Maybe we start to have an answer to that question that I just proposed. But right now, I mean, if this is the version of Bridges we're going to get, it's just not enough. It's not going to win us games in the playoffs. It's not going to win us games right now. It's not going to get us to where we want to be. It's holding us back from reaching our ultimate goal. Karl-Anthony Towns, for example, was one of the bigger issues at the start of the season, but he ended up turning his season around completely. He's been one of their most consistent players, and he's found his efficiency again since the All-Star break. And if that's the version we're going to get in the playoffs, then we can go far, even with Bridges struggling as he is. But at the same time, you can't have a guy like Bridges out there who's really struggling and kind of being I don't want to say sole reason because it's just not true. He's not the sole reason why they have these slow starts, but he's definitely a big reason why they end up falling down so much because, well, he's not shooting the ball well. And you're relying on him to shoot the ball well. You're expecting him to make a lot of shots. He's not doing that. So I don't know if they're actually going to end up benching Bridges. I just don't see it happening just because of the amount of money attached to him, one, but also just the the fact that I just don't think starting Clarkson or Shamit is really going to change much. I think you might as well just keep them in their bench role and just play them more minutes, play it more situational, see how Bridges is looking out there, and kind of evaluate it from there. But they need more from Bridges. They really do. I mean, Jalen Brunson, for example, got on that little slump a little bit a couple weeks ago, and he's back to being his old self. He scored 28 plus in the last 3 games, and he scored 30 points last night, and was a big reason why they were able to come back and win. Mikal Bridges, on the other hand, 21 minutes. It's the fewest amount of minutes he's played in a long time, and I think Mike Brown is starting to realize that maybe he's just not kind of working right now, and I don't know if it's I don't know if it's a mental thing. I don't know if it's a fit thing. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know anymore. And I don't want to just keep saying I don't know when I talk about Bridges because again, I don't have the answers to everything. Of course, we're just here chatting it up and chopping it up on this stream. But I think we all can agree that Bridges needs to do more. We can agree that we need more out of him. We can agree that he's not giving us enough right now. And I think we can all agree that he's probably the biggest issue right now. Maybe people feel differently about that last part. Maybe people feel Mike Brown is a bigger issue, or Josh Hart's a bigger issue, or somebody else that I haven't mentioned. Whatever. I think though it's very clear that Bridges is certainly an issue, and he needs to snap out of it. I mean, it needs to happen ASAP. We're running out of time to really get him to kind of figure things out and kind of understand his role. And if he's still unsure of what his role looks like come playoff time, that's a problem. We're in trouble. You can't have a guy that is starting games for you and playing all these games for you and playing as many minutes as he was at least before, who has no idea what he's doing. You need to be able to have a guy who understands his role and kind of, really mesh, because we know Bridges at his best can be a very good player. We saw him in Brooklyn be an elite scorer, a very good defender. We saw him in Phoenix be an absolutely elite defender while also being a very solid shooter. We know that Bridges has a lot in him. We know he's got a lot of game. We know he can really do something. We know this. And we've seen him have some big games with us as well. But we have not, quite frankly, seen it enough this year. We haven't seen those big games enough of him in his Knicks tenure. And we have really not seen anything productive, really, from him in the past few games. And again, a few games is not a huge sample size. Maybe tomorrow night against Indiana, he goes crazy and he puts up 30 points, which would be awesome. I would be very happy if he ends up doing something like that. I'd be very happy if he put up 15, honestly, on solid efficiency. I'm not asking Bridges to score 30 points a night. I don't need that out of him when you have Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns sharing the floor together. You don't need Bridges to average 30 points or average 20 plus. You don't need that. But you need Bridges to, provide more than 5 points or 0 points or however many points he ends up finishing the game with, because you need more. The offense cannot click if Mikal Bridges is not clicking, and that's something that needs to change. I think there's a confidence thing with Bridges, especially because I noticed last night, especially, that there were a few shots he was hesitant on. He passed up an open three late in the fourth quarter. He also hesitated on a three in the fourth quarter as well and missed it. That's not like Bridges. Bridges usually plays a lot more freely and with a lot more confidence. So the fact that he's hesitating on shots and he's hesitant to put certain shots up tells me that he's losing confidence. And that's not good. You don't want one of your top options to be losing confidence. That's just not what that's not what you want, you know. And anyways, as I do kind of pivot over back, I'm going to look at the Instagram and check out some of the comments, because I know a lot of you guys are tuning in on this stream through there. So I will, scroll back a little bit through the comments, take a look at some of these just to kind of see what you guys have to say and, go from there. Somebody said, for me, a win is a win. I don't know why people are mad. Look, I get that. A win is a win, but, being upset about the win is valid here in this case, because the process was very bad. Let's be honest. The process was not good, and the defense, especially in that first quarter, was pathetic. I mean, I could rip them apart really if I want to, but I'm not going to do that because they won the game. But, it was bad. The defense was simply bad in that first quarter, and it's the reason why they went down 21. Yes, the offense kind of sputtered a little bit as well, but when you play poor defense like that, you're not going to win games, guys. We saw when they were 18th in defensive rating that they were like 25 and 18 at that time, which it's not a bad record, but it's not a good record either for a team that's supposed to win a title. And now we've seen that they've catapulted up to the fifth highest defensive rating in the league, or fifth lowest, excuse me, and they are winning more games. So it's simple. Defense is a formula to winning games, but when you play bad defense, you're just not going to go anywhere. Let's check out some of the other comments. Someone said that the Knicks have a very tall that they have a very tall team. The other players besides Brunson aren't stepping up, which is the issue. Yeah, and it goes back to my point about Bridges. Karl Anthony Towns and OG Anunoby, I think, have stepped up, and of course Jordan Clarkson has as well. I think, and Mitchell Robinson. Those four guys that I just named right there are giving the Knicks what they need. Guys like Shamet and Bridges, though, Shamet's been struggling a lot lately. I got to be honest, he has. As important as I do think he is, and as impactful defensively he's been at times, his shooting has struggled of late. It's just true. And Mikal Bridges, I already talked about him, kind of just went off on him for a few minutes, talking about his struggles, and he's the biggest problem. It's very clear he's the biggest problem because with Josh Hart, when he's not scoring, at least he's still giving you some rebounds and he's giving you playmaking and he's pushing pace. When Mikal Bridges' shot isn't falling, I mean, he's not really doing anything out there. It's just true. He's not doing anything. And that it can't be that way. You can't have games like that. You just can't. Somebody did comment on Twitter, and I'm going to pull it up right now so that you guys can also see it. I'm going to get rid of this so I can pull up the comment. Andres Puerta, he said, agreed the process was horrible, especially given the opponent. Totally justified to be pissed off about this game. Yeah, I mean, well said, because, again, a win's a win. I'm not going to be upset about them winning a game because, they could easily have just lost the game and we could have been really upset about that. But, at the end of the day, this game counts the same as a 30-point blowout win over Golden State. But, when you watch the game and you see how things went, just like you just mentioned, given the opponent, I mean, guys, the Warriors had like 9 available players and they literally had to sign Omer Yurtseven just so they had enough people to play. They literally had to do that. There were players out there who I'd never heard of before. I didn't even know LJ Cryer was on the Warriors, and he was great at Houston. Don't get me wrong. I didn't even know he was on Golden State until I saw him out there yesterday. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to those guys on the Golden State Warriors because hats off to them. They played really well and they caught us snapping a lot of times last night. But the Knicks are supposed to be much better than that. They're supposed to have blown those guys out by 20 plus. Game should have never been close. You were playing at home. You were playing at the Garden. It shouldn't have been that way. And I'm not, trying to be like, a Debbie Downer. I'm not trying to cry on here or nothing like that. No, again, guys, they won the game. I'm happy they won the game, but they definitely could have been much better than the way that it went yesterday. And I think Mike Brown knows that. And I think that's why Mike Brown was so upset in his press conference yesterday, because Mike Brown knows that his team is better than that. He knows they're much better than that. So we know that just can't be happening that way anymore. I'm going to go back to the Instagram to take a look at some more comments from the Instagram. I've missed a lot, and I won't be able to get to every single comment. So if you guys if I did miss your comment, I apologize. I physically cannot get to every single one. Let's see. Someone said, if the Spurs beat Oklahoma City and we play the Spurs, I would love to see that in the finals. I think we can win. I agree. I do think the Knicks can beat the Spurs if they match up in the finals. But again, I think the Knicks need to worry about the teams in front of them before we can even start thinking about the finals, because, I mean, again, we'll forget about this game against Golden State, hopefully, in a week or so. We'll forget about that Jazz game and the Pacers game, because at the end of the day, we'll look at this box score and we'll say, well, they won those games. We'll forget about them, right? But we also got to worry about teams like Detroit, Boston, teams like that in the East that can give the Knicks a run for their money. And while I do think the Knicks can beat those teams in a playoff series, I would be lying if I said it would be easy. So we'll just have to see what happens. Let's look through some more comments. Let's see. Someone said Bridges is inconsistent, but I respect he's played so many games in a row. Look, I get that. Bridges playing all those games is great. And, that's why the Knicks traded for him. They wanted to have a guy who was healthy, especially following a season where they got decimated by injuries, where guys were just out and they really just had no able bodies left to beat the Pacers in that playoff series 2 years ago. But at the same time, if we're gonna have Bridges out there every game, we need better production than what we're getting out of him right now. We can't. We can be happy with the fact that he's out there. We cannot be happy with the fact that he's out there averaging 6 points in a 5 game stretch and shooting below 20% from three. We can't be happy with that. Let's see. I'm going back to the Instagram. If anyone's watching this on Twitter or YouTube, also feel free to leave comments like Andres did, because I would love to chat with you guys about that stuff and whatever you guys want to talk about. Someone said Cavs are a good team too with Harden, so we got to keep an eye on them too. Absolutely. We cannot just overlook Cleveland. I do think the Knicks are better than Cleveland, but we cannot just overlook them and treat Cleveland like they're nothing. I mean, they whooped us last time we met up with them. Harden and Mitchell didn't even do all that great in that game, and we still lost that game by 15. So we cannot sleep on Cleveland at all. I do think, again, the Knicks are better than Cleveland. I'm not here saying that we're worse than Cleveland. No, I do think we're much better than them, but we can't sleep on them either. We cannot just overlook them. Someone said, I personally believe Mikhail will show up for the playoffs. I really hope so. I mean, it happened last year. I'll admit it. He was bad in the regular season last year. Well, I wouldn't say bad, but, he was underwhelming in the regular season last year, but then he stepped up against Boston. But I think I want to put this take out there. I think some people overrate Bridges' playoff run last year just a little bit. And again, I'm not saying he didn't do what we needed him to do in the playoffs. He did. I mean, he basically won us those 2 games in Boston with those defensive plays. Absolutely. I love that. But if you look at Bridges' playoff run as a whole last year, there were some good games thrown in there, but there was also some bad games thrown in there as well, like we're seeing right now. And I think while I do think he played better in the playoffs overall, I think some people are making it sound like he carried the Knicks through the playoffs, which I don't think is true. I don't think he carried the Knicks to the playoffs. I think really, if anything, I think Brunson doing what he did was what got the Knicks to where they needed to be, because we know Brunson is one of the top playoff performers really in the entire league. So I think that was kind of more of a difference maker. But I think I'm not saying Bridges didn't do anything in the playoffs, no, but I think that he wasn't the sole reason they got to where they got. I don't think so. I think he helped. He made 2 very good plays, which were 2 very winning plays, which are great. But they weren't it wasn't like he carried. I'm gonna scroll down a little bit to more recent comments. I want to see if anyone else is saying anything. Someone said, I'm in a restaurant eating and I see on the TV Stephen A. Smith talking about how much Bridges sucks. The thing with Stephen A. Smith is he's one of those guys where he will go on TV and he'll give his take about the Knicks, and usually his take changes after 2 weeks. If they lose 3 games in a row, the Knicks aren't going to the finals. If the Knicks win 3 games in a row, they're going to the finals. They're beating everybody. They're orange and blue skies, this, that, third. It's Stephen A's job to just be a commentator and to be more of an entertainer than anything else. So I take whatever Stephen A says with a grain of salt. I'm just being honest. Playing this way won't get us far in the playoffs. The game against Utah was an eye-opener. Absolutely. I think that's a fantastic point there. I mean, again, games like that are going to happen in a long season. I'm not going to act like they are, not going to happen at all. There will be times where a good team has a bad night against a bad team. I mean, the Cavs lost to the Mavericks last night. The Knicks lost to the Mavericks earlier this year. The Pistons have lost a game to the Jazz. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes you get found on a bad night, even against a bad team. It happens. It's part of basketball. But this has been a thing now for the last 3 games where the Knicks are finding themselves down or getting outscored by a lot against bad teams, and that's not okay. If it happens one time, you can just kind of chalk it up and be like, okay, it's a bad game, then you move on. When it happens 3 times in a row, even though you've won all 3 games, when it happens 3 times in a row, you start to wonder, though, is this going to become a recurring thing? Because it can't happen, especially at this time of the year when you're fighting for playoff position still. They have not clinched a playoff spot whatsoever. They haven't even clinched a 3rd seed or anything. there's still 13 games left. They technically can finish as the 1 seed if they really want to, but though I don't think they're gonna end up as the 1 seed. The second seed is right there. I said this last stream. If there's Yankee fans in here and everyone knows how much Aaron Boone says the phrase "it's right in front of us," yeah, it is right in front of us. The second seed is right there. They can get that second seed, but they have to play better. They can keep winning these games, sure. I'm happy they're winning these games, but if they want to continue to win the games, they have to play better because not every team is going to just let them get away with full on slump starting games out like crap. Someone said, "What do I believe the Knicks need to do to win the title?" Well, there's a lot of things they'll have to do to win the title. Everything's got to go their way, but um, it starts with starting games better. That's for sure. It starts with that because second through the fourth quarter. I mean, even in the past 3 games, they look great. They dominate. They have one of their better stretches of the games during those phases of the game. First quarters, though, I mean, my God, it's ugly watches sometimes. I understand, sometimes you just start the game out slow. Sometimes you're just not fully locked in or fully warmed up, whatever. But they cannot afford to keep going down 20 in first quarters or giving up 40 points in first quarters. Good teams are not going to let them get away with that. Let's see. Someone said, "Got to stop heaving up shots in poor spots. If threes ain't popping, pivot, get in the paint. If captain's shot is cold, move the ball. Curb the idiotic turnovers." Yeah, turnovers were really bad in the first quarter yesterday, especially. It was a lot of that. A lot of those unforced errors, a lot of, forced passes in lanes and, as you alluded to as well, missed shots. It's not a recipe for winning games. And I apologize if the rain and thunder is very loud outside. It is raining, so if my power goes out, I apologize in advance. Hopefully it does not, fingers crossed. Someone said, "I don't know if we can beat the Celtics because Tatum is back. What do you think, Jalen? What do you think? Jalen will lock in to bring us to playoffs?" I'm hoping that Brunson can end up, doing exactly what he does every playoffs, and I'm confident he will do that. Just based off these past few games, I'm confident that he will find his rhythm in time for the postseason. He will really get, back to that clutch player type performer. That's what I'm hoping for, and I'm expecting out of him. With Tatum back, I mean, I'm not afraid of it necessarily because, I mean, we beat a better version of the Celtics last year with Tatum. I mean, yes, Tatum got hurt in game 4, excuse me, but the Knicks were about to go up 3-1 anyway. Even if Tatum stayed healthy, they still win that game most likely. So I'm not too worried about it right now. If Tatum starts playing at a high level and the Celtics continue to really show me something, then I'll be worried about it. Am I watching them with a close eye? Absolutely. I'm very much keeping them on notice, but um, I'm not necessarily afraid of them, if that makes sense. Let's see. Someone asked, "Do I think Mitchell Robinson needs more playing time?" Yes, absolutely. I think Mitchell Robinson is one of their most impactful players. I think we saw that in the Pacers game when Karl-Anthony Towns sat out, career high 22 rebounds, made a lot of good plays underneath the rim. I think he absolutely needs more playing time. I absolutely do think so. I think he definitely needs more playing time. Now, granted, I know sometimes when he plays a lot of minutes, sometimes he gets a little, worn out. Sometimes it's a little rough for him to play a ton of minutes. So, you're giving or taking here. But I do think I think we will see a lot of Mitchell Robinson in the postseason, especially. I feel like right now we'll just see kind of like we'll see him a lot, but we won't see him for 30 minutes again. I highly doubt that unless like again we're very shorthanded. Let's see. Someone said Alvarado has been slacking big time. Landry has been very inconsistent. Don't get me started on the free throw shooting. Well, yeah, the free throw shooting is not ideal, but I think that's an issue that can figure itself out. A lot of teams go through slumps at the free throw line. But Alvarado has been struggling a lot lately, and I think really he's just still trying to acclimate himself to Mike Brown's system. He's trying to acclimate himself to the rest of the guys around him. He's trying to figure out his role. I think part of the issue is that his minutes have been, I wouldn't say inconsistent, but they haven't been straight line either. Some games he's playing 20 minutes, some games he's playing 8 minutes. So I think really I think what also is part of the problem is he's not shooting the ball well and he's not confident shooting the ball. I can just see it. But I think he's still important because he provides playmaking. He's an extra ball handler. He can help run the offense. And I think he can really help Karl Anthony Towns kind of take over games when Brunson is sitting down. So you still need him out there. Even, and that's not even mentioning the hounding defense that he provides. So I think he'll figure it out. I'm not worried about Alvarado right now, and plus, hopefully in the postseason we have Deuce McBride back, so we'll have fallback options. We'll have a lot more depth than we do right now. So we'll just have to see what happens there. I'm gonna scroll back up through the Instagram just to see what other comments I missed because I went through some of the recent ones, and now I'm gonna go back down here. Somebody said this was back at the start of the stream. He said Bridges trade is the trade that will ruin us for another decade. I don't know about that. I mean, the Knicks had a lot of bad trades over the years, and they had a lot of a lot of moves that just didn't work out. We can look at like the Andre Bargnani trade. Even, I mean, some people like to point out the Melo trade as well, and I'm not going to necessarily disagree. But I think the Knicks are still very good, even if with the Bridges trade. I think they're still in a fine spot. I think the problem with the Bridges trade is that at the time, it didn't seem like a bad idea. It didn't, but I think the price tag is what really kind of hurt because those picks could have been used for Giannis, and quite frankly, we still can get Giannis in the summer if that's something they end up needing to do. But I don't think we're quite there. We're not going to talk about that yet because that's a conversation we can save for the offseason. We talked about Giannis enough during the trade deadline, and a lot of you guys got sick of us talking about him, so we're not going to talk about him right now. But we'll just have to see if the Bridges trade ends up working out because I mean this is year 2 of Bridges, and if he sticks around past this offseason, like if they don't trade him, then we're going to have him for another few years. So we'll just have to see what happens. Someone else said Mikhail needs to get benched for a few games so he'll realize he needs to step up. You know, I don't know if they're gonna bench him for a few games, but I'm not opposed to the idea of the lesser minutes he's getting. I'm not opposed to the idea of him sitting a game, but I understand if they don't want to break that Iron Man streak just because like it's a personal streak and it's something that they'll probably want him to keep intact. I feel like if you sit him a game and you break that streak, it not only will kind of like I don't want to say create a distraction. It's just an Iron Man streak, but it will definitely make some players feel different about the head coach if he decides to do that. Unless, of course, Mikhail agrees to something like that. It's one of those things where you kind of are playing with fire there, and you don't want to sit him entirely. Even though, again, do I think it's warranted of him sitting? Absolutely. I think the way he's been playing has just been unacceptable. But at the same time, I don't know if sitting him is going to actually change anything. Because I mean, he's essentially sitting anyway. He's playing less minutes, and he's not scoring anyway. So I mean, is he really even out there playing? You know what I mean? Let's see. Let's see. Someone said the team should have been changed at the deadline. Should have known when Brown was hired. No. Okay, and I'm gonna point this out because I will say at one point I did say I was ready for things to get shaken up. I wasn't calling for them to blow it up necessarily or for them to trade everybody. That's just silly. That's reactionary. And of course, I will admit I overreacted a little bit when I said that they need to make big changes. But at the time, things were just not looking great. I think what they did, the deadline was fine though. They added Jose Alvarado, who I do think can make a positive impact at some point, and Jeremy Sohan. I know he doesn't play, but it's still important to have him around in case you need him, in case the guy gets hurt. So we'll just have to see what happens. Let's see. I'm just going through some of the earlier comments before we wrap things up. I will probably wrap this stream up within the next 10 minutes, but I will definitely go through some more comments and chat with you guys because I like talking Knicks with you guys. I'm gonna go back to the recent stretch of the comments to see if anyone else left a comment. Someone said, "Yo, what's up? What's up, man? How you doing? Hope everyone is doing well on this Monday. Fresh off of a Knicks win. Wasn't pretty, but a Knicks win is a Knicks win, right?" See if anyone left a comment on YouTube or Twitter. I don't see any extra comments, so I'll go back to the Instagram. We got some comments here. So someone said, when we get Deuce back, should we play him more minutes over Alvarado? Um, that's a good one because obviously Deuce is a better player than Alvarado. I think that's pretty obvious, but Deuce will be coming fresh off of an injury, and I don't know exactly how much time he will have to kind of get back in rhythm. Maybe he comes back before the season ends, and that question will be answered, and he'll be in rhythm. Maybe he won't. So I think that's a question we can have a better answer for in a couple weeks when hopefully he's close to returning, because then we'll have an idea of how ready he is. Because if he's not ready, if he's not in rhythm, I don't want him playing too many minutes and just kind of shooting us out of games. So we'll just have to see what happens. Somebody said we need to trade Bridges to make room to re-sign Robinson. I brought that up too, and technically they don't need to trade Bridges to sign Robinson because then they can just go into the second apron. But I'm unsure if the Knicks want to do that. I'm very much unsure if the Knicks want to enter the second apron, and that's why I mentioned that maybe they need to move Bridges to allow themselves to re-sign Robinson, because technically you don't have to if you just want to enter the second apron, but the Knicks have been playing this tightrope around the second apron over the past 2 summers, so it's very clear that that's kind of something they're trying to avoid. So I wonder what's going to happen. I think this final month of the regular season and whatever the playoffs show is going to tell a lot about how the Knicks feel about this core. Whether they feel that this core is built to win a title, or if this core needs to get shaken up for a guy like Giannis or something, or a superstar of equivalence to get them to that mountaintop. Someone said, "How are we on this fine afternoon?" Yeah, I'm doing great, and I hope everyone else is doing well as well. I'm happy to be able to at least talk about the Knicks after a win, but I do want them to play better, and I think we can all agree that that's an expectation that we should all have. Um, Someone said, "I think that the Knicks fall in the playoffs will be starting games bad." I'm not going to say the Knicks are going to fall in the playoffs. I think that's just me being negative if I end up saying that on here. But I do think if they do start games bad like this constantly, then yeah, they will have trouble winning playoff games. So that's why, even though they've won the last 3 games, why I'm coming on here to um, talk about these slow starts. Because yeah, you can get away with it against the tanking Jazz when they're purposely trying to lose games, and you can get away with it against the Pacers, who, quite frankly, are also trying to lose games, and against Golden State as well, who is really had like nobody out there. You're not going to get away with that though against the Pistons or the Celtics or the Cavaliers or a team like that. You're not going to get away with starting a game slow against them. You're just not. So that's why that's why the mood was so down yesterday. I mean, a win's a win. We can be really happy about the win. I'm happy that they won the game. I'm not happy about how they won the game. I'm not happy that they found themselves down by 21 at any point in the game to, as I said earlier in the stream, a decapitated Warriors team. And yes, I mean decapitated, because they basically didn't even have a head, because all of their rotation basically was out. I mean, the list of injuries Golden State had yesterday was insane. I mean, I can't believe a team with that much star power was out. Steph Curry was out. Draymond Green, Kristaps Porzingis, Jimmy Butler, Moses Moody, Al Horford, DeAnthony Melton, Seth Curry. That's basically their entire rotation right there that all didn't play. You know what I mean? So that's just craziness. I can't believe that there were that many guys out, and I cannot believe that the Knicks let that Golden State team hang around. But again, it is what it is. Games like that are going to happen, but it's definitely a game where you kind of got to look at it and go, okay, we have to make adjustments. Something has to change here. It shouldn't be the collective response by the team should not be that it was an acceptable win. No, it shouldn't. I think at the end of the day, they can be pleased that they came out with a win because it counts the same as a 30-point blowout, but they should not be happy with how it went. They shouldn't be happy with that. Someone said the Knicks are the literal definition of confusion. Yeah, they're the most confusing team in NBA history. I will firmly say that at this point, because at this point, you never know which version of this team you're going to get night in and night out. You have no clue if they're going to win the game by 30, if they're going to lose the game by 30, if they're going to go down by 30 and then come back, or if they're going to, um, I don't even know. I'm literally flabbergasted. The team has me completely stumped because I don't know what version of him we're gonna get, and who knows? Maybe they're doing this to kind of figure things out during the regular season and get ready for the playoffs because they're more built to be a playoff team. That's fine. I get it. It's understandable. At the same time, though, the regular season can tell you who you are. So when you have bad games like this, it does tell a lot. It does say something. Do I think it's the tell all be all? Absolutely not. It's just one game. I don't think one game in March determines how you're going to play in April, but I do think it matters at the same time. Someone said should Hart play less minutes? Um, yeah, I think he should. And I think the problem is that, he just can't space the floor. He's not willing to shoot the ball. I mean, he made a three-pointer last night, but again, he's unwilling to let it fly. He's kind of just sometimes I feel like he's running out there with like a chicken with his head cut off, and he's not really sure what to do when he has the ball in his hands because there's many times he'll get the ball and then he kind of just looks around and looks for someone else to get it. Which, again, he has acknowledged many times over the past year and a half that he's a servant to the guys. He's not meant to be somebody who's scoring a bunch of points and taking games over. He's looking to just be, facilitator in a way. But I think him coming off the bench would be better just for the sake of the type of play style he has, where he's more of a energy guy, a rebounder, a good playmaker. I think they could use that extra playmaking. The problem is, if you take him out of the starting lineup, you're losing that extra playmaking when Jalen Brunson inevitably gets double teamed and someone else can't handle the rock. So there's a bit of an issue there on that front that we don't have enough guys who can truly facilitate the offense outside of Brunson and Hart. So we'll have to just see what happens there. And I apologize if you guys hear my dogs barking. They like to go nuts sometimes. So I apologize if you can hear that in the background. Someone said he shoots like 37% from three. Yeah, but we've talked about it before, and that 37% from three is on relatively low volume. It's not on extremely low volume, but he averages about 3.5 attempts from three a night. I just needed a water break there. But he averages about 3.5 attempts from three a night. And, the fact that he's not shooting like 5 threes a night, 6 threes a night, I feel like if that volume went up to that number, he'd be more at around 34, 35, which isn't bad. It's not bad by any means, but it's not nearly 40%. So I do think there is a bit of a difference there. Someone said that they should maybe start Mo over Josh Hart. I understand this conversation, and it's a player that I've considered as well to possibly start instead of Hart, but I don't think they're going to end up doing that. I don't think it's a good idea either. I mean, we saw last night Diawara struggled bad. He looked really bad last night. I just got to be honest. He looked like a rookie. He looked like a 20-year-old rookie last night. And again, that's fine. He's allowed to have moments like that. He's a rookie. He's still learning the game. He's still learning everything there is to be about an NBA player. So I'm not going to rag on Muhammad Diawara out of all players for having a bad game. It happens. He's a rookie. But I don't think he should be starting if he's going to have issues like that. Again, it's a one-off. Maybe he ends up playing really well the next game and we forget about that. But I think the role he's in is fine. I really do. And I've said it many times, so, I don't want to continue to have to repeat it every time, but I do think his role has been fine. Somebody said, I get it, a win is a win, but I'm not happy with how they struggled with the Warriors. Yeah, that's the summation right there. I'm pleased with the win. We celebrated the win last night on the page, playing the song and putting the graphic up. Great. But I think we can all agree that visually and aesthetically, that was a very ugly game. That was not pleasant. I was not happy with that. Saying he has to start shooting because if he starts making them, then teams won't put their best defender on Hart, so he doesn't take up spacing. Yeah, and I think that goes for a lot of different guys. I think a lot of guys need to just let that ball fly, especially Josh Hart. Though I think Josh Hart is someone who really needs to start shooting the ball because I mean, guys, remember last year when Josh Hart wasn't shooting the ball like that? The same issues that we're having now with that were happening last year, where teams were throwing their centers on Hart and just camping in the paint and not even guarding him, not even respecting his shot. So when things like when something like that is happening, then that means either someone has to shoot the ball more or someone's got to get out of that off the court. And that's why we see like Bridges and Hart get such quick hooks right now, because they're not shooting the ball, but two, they're not hitting the shots either. And when that's happening, the spacing gets messed up, and then the rest of the guys can't do anything offensively, and then the offense sputters. And then that's how you find yourself down by 21 to the G League Warriors, the Santa Cruz Warriors, the AI generated Warriors. So someone said like it's not like Hart can't shoot. I know. I don't think he's like an elite shooter. Don't get me wrong. I do think that 37% from three is very much an outlier number. I do think if you gave Hart higher volume, it would be a little lower. But he's not a bad shooter either. He's not like a guy who shoots like 20% from three. So I don't understand why he's not willing to shoot it. I wonder if that finger injury that he's been dealing with all year, the one that he did not get surgery on in the offseason, I wonder if that's affecting him. I do. I know he's been playing like normal Josh Hart for the most part, but I do wonder if he would be shooting a little bit more if he didn't have that issue. It's just a theory, though. At the end of the day, maybe he wouldn't. Maybe it'd be exactly the same if his finger was perfectly straight. So, someone said who should come in for Hart. That's the thing. I don't know. At this point, I don't know who they're going to change out of that. I don't even know if they're going to make a lineup change. Mike Brown alluded to the possibility that while I do think he's not going to make a lineup change, he didn't rule it out. So I expect the starting five to stay the same tomorrow night against Indiana, but I also wouldn't be surprised if maybe he does mix things up. I guess we'll find out the hard way, but we'll just have to see. I'll answer a couple more questions and then I'm going to wrap this stream up because, been on here for about an hour now talking some Knicks. Obviously, last night was it was good that they came back down 21 to win, but I do think everyone here agrees that it could have been better. So, that's what we're here to talk about today. And I'm going to look back to see if there's any comments on Twitter and YouTube, and I don't see any extra comments there. So go right back to the Instagram where we do got some people tuned in. Someone said, I don't think that is because I feel like it was happening last year too with regards to Hart's finger in the shot. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm kind of just throwing things up in the air. I don't really know if that's really what it is either. It might just be a confidence thing, or maybe it's just I don't know if it's his role. I don't really know. I don't know. That's nothing. There's nothing conclusive or definitive at this point about what it is. We're kind of just here to kind of hypothesize and figure things out because we can only evaluate what's in front of us. Someone said Clarkson has stepped up, and I do want to talk about Jordan Clarkson, so I'm glad you brought him up. Jordan Clarkson has been very solid lately, and I'm very glad to see that because, he was out of the rotation for a little bit. He obviously did not play really a whole lot after the NBA Cup, and now he's back in the rotation after guys were missing some games, and of course, after the offense kind of was a little stuck in mud, and Clarkson has been a spark. I mean, yesterday he was a big reason why they were able to come back from that 21-point deficit and win the game. And, he was really impactful, of course, against Utah with a 27-point game. He was very solid against Indiana as well, making a lot of big plays. So I think Clarkson's out there trying to prove a little something, and he's playing really well. And I'm happy for him because this is a guy who handled the benching like a pro. He didn't complain. He obviously wanted to play, but he didn't outright complain. He was still supportive of the team, supportive of the guys. And then, now he's back in the rotation and he's hooping. So I'm happy for him. And I hope that this continues into the postseason. I hope that he, this isn't just like a Christmas week Kemba Walker-esque run. If you guys remember that from 2021, I hope this is more than that. And I hope that this is a start of something very productive for Jordan Clarkson the rest of the way. So I do think he can be important in the playoffs. If he can catch fire offensively and make a lot of shots and make some big plays, I do think he can be an important player. I'm going to go back to the YouTube and Twitter to see if there's any comments. I don't see any. If anyone else has got anything they want to add in the comments, leave one and I will answer it. I will answer 2 more questions or 2 more comments, whatever. And then I'm going to wrap this stream up because we're almost at 4 o'clock now. So I do think we'll be at a good spot to wrap things up very soon. But yeah, like I said, as far as Jordan Clarkson goes, I'm happy to see him be productive right now. The Knicks needed a guy to be productive right now off the bench, and he stepped up and he's delivered. So I'm very happy about that, and I hope it continues. Someone said hopefully Deuce gets back to his form when he returns. Yeah, I do hope so. I hope he's back to what he was, and I hope he doesn't struggle. But I would be lying if I said I expect him to be lights out immediately upon returning if he returns. It's not even a guarantee he's going to return, but with the expectation that he will return by the postseason, I'm not expecting him to be perfect off rip. I'm not, but I do think he will be very impactful to have, especially the point of attack on defense. Someone said, "Do I now think Cat and Bridges plus a few picks for Giannis would be a good deal?" I mean, it might have, but at the time of the deadline, it was not going to be enough. They weren't just going to take Cat and Bridges and maybe one first rounder for Giannis. They weren't going to do it. Cat wasn't playing at an all-star level. You had executives around the league saying Cat had the same value as Trae Young. And we saw what Trae Young's return package was. It was CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert, and that was it. So at the time, it wouldn't have been a good deal, no. And the core muscle injury is in his stomach. That they were looking for something wrong with his ankle, and then they discovered the hernia. I'm not a doctor. I'm not uh, a big medical expert. I just know it's not related to his ankle. It's not. Yeah, he was out with the ankle issue, but the hernia is something unrelated to that. It's not the same. As far as I'm concerned right now, as far as updates with Deuce, we haven't really gotten much of one lately. Um, the last update we got was that he was doing form shooting, but that was it, and that was about a week ago. Um, but that's not jump shooting. That's not running around. That's not actually taking part in practice. That's kind of just weeding it out a little bit and kind of just getting yourself back into in the mode ready to really kick off your rehab. So he's still got a ways to go. If we see him at all in the regular season, it won't be until like the second to last game or something like that. Anyways, guys, I do think this is a good spot to wrap things up now. We're about an hour into the stream, and I do got some things to take care of. So I'm going to wrap this up here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Let me know if you guys want more of these because I will do more of these um, as the rest of the season continues and as the playoffs come near the corner. I will continue to do more streams. So if you guys do like them, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe. You can also follow my personal Twitter account. If you're watching this on Twitter and YouTube, my personal Twitter account is right there on the screen. If you guys are watching this on Instagram, it is at Dylan Backer ESM. So if you type that in on Twitter, you will find me there. And yeah, that's all I got to say. Let's hope the Knicks play better tomorrow night against Indiana. Obviously, 3 wins in a row is great, but we know it could be better. So that's all we want. And with playoffs around the corner and big expectations for us, we want them to be at their best. So we're going to hold them to that standard until we see that more often. Anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. So thank you guys again. And I'll see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks. Peace out, and let's go Knicks.